Hi, in this lecture you will learn how to initialize the packages. When we first call a component in a package, the entire package is loaded into the memory. We know that. But we know that if you did not initialize a variable, it is null by default. So we generally initialize our variables to avoid null value exceptions. So Oracle lets us to initialize the variables with one more way. Now, while our package is first loaded into the memory, we can set our package to run a block of code at first. I mean, in packages, we can write a block of code that will run as a very first job of a package. Now, in here, we can assign some values to our variables. If we do that, the initialized variables are overridden and the new values are set for these variables. However, this is not the main idea of this block. Like the constructors in the object-oriented programming languages, we can either initialize some variables or we can do some business in it. For example, you can insert a log about the package call, or you can empty a table, or you can arrange some session issues, etc. But this block works just like the constructors and enables you to do a very first thing when your package is first referenced. So how do we do that? We know that we cannot write a begin keyword within a package normally. But with this way, we can write a begin keyword just before the end keyword of a package body. This begin end block is the first thing that will be run in a package. But do not confuse about that. If you initialize your variables as somewhere else, they are initialized first. But this code will override the variable values if you change the values in here. This code is the first executable code, and it runs automatically when we first reference our package. Now, let's open up our SQL developer and make some examples about that. Now we know that our initialization block is written inside of the package body and right before the end keyword. Assume that we want to insert a log record about our package and also want to initialize some variables. Now, first, let's create a log table. So we can use this log table in our next lessons too. We write create table logs, and the columns are log source, varchar2, let's say 100, and log message, varchar2, let's say 1000, and log date, it's a date. Now let's create it. Great. Now let's open up the body of our mpkg package and write our initialization block. We write begin and let's say insert into logs values, let's say mpkg, the name of our package, and let's say package initialized. And for the date, let's write sysdate. Now let's compile it. Alright, now let's reference our package. For example, let's print the average salary of a department. I simply write execute and dbms output.put line and mpkg dot get average salary. And the department ID is, let's say, 80. Did you realize something? Since put line is a procedure of dbms output package, we can easily run it with the execute command. But this is not our subject now. So now let's check if we have any rows in the logs table. Select all the columns from logs. As you can see, our initialization block is executed and inserted a log into our logs table. Great. Now, as I said, this can be used for initializing the variables. Let's make an example about that then. We can see that our V salary increase rate variable is initialized as 1000 by default. Now, first let's print it. Execute. dbms output.put line, let me copy that. mpkg.v salary increase rate. Now let's run it. As we can see, it's 1000 by default. Now let's change it in the initialization block then. V salary increase rate is equal to, let's say, 500. And compile it. All right, now let's run the print code again. As you can see, it is overwritten. But let me show you something now. Let's select from our logs table. As you can see, 2 rows. So let's run our dbms output for a couple times. And let's query our logs table again. As you can see, the row count is still 2 because this initialization block runs only at the first time that we refer to our package component in a session. So let's disconnect and reconnect again. Now let's run our dbms output again. And let's query our logs table again. As you can see, whether we call a subprogram or use a variable in our package means when we first refer to a component of a package, this initialization block is executed for once. It will not be executed again until you end your session and call it by another session. If any other user refers to that package, this code will be executed for that session too. So this code is executed in the first call of that package in each session. Alright, to sum up, we have the chance to write a code block to be run at first in a package body. With this way, we can either initialize some variables or do some business for the first call of a package. So this is the end of this lecture. See you in the next lectures.